Hello, welcome to Stay Sleepy, a calm corner where stories drift like soft waves in the night. I'm Alex, your narrator, here to guide you into a world of peace and dreams. Each night, we slow down together, the lights fade, voices soften, and stories begin to whisper. Here, words move gently, helping your mind rest and your body unwind. So take a deep breath, close your eyes, and let the quiet carry you away. You're safe, you're calm, and it's time to stay sleepy. Now, let's begin. The evening had a quiet beauty, soft and slow, like a sigh. The sun was gone, leaving behind a faint pink glow along the horizon. A narrow path stretched ahead, lined with grass that shimmered after rain. Each step felt light, as if the world wanted me to walk slower. A cool breeze brushed past, carrying the scent of wet earth and pine. Somewhere far away, a night bird called, low and gentle. The sound faded into the open fields like a thought drifting away. It was a perfect hour, not day, not night, just peaceful in between. The road was old, but kind beneath my feet. Pale stones peeked through patches of moss. Every few steps, the wind stirred the leaves, and they rustled softly, as if whispering stories to one another. Above, the sky deepened from lilac to blue-gray. One by one, the first stars appeared, shy, trembling dots of light. I paused for a moment just to look at them, and felt something calm settle quietly inside me. Far ahead, I could see faint lanterns flickering in the mist. Their glow wavered like tiny hearts beating in the distance. I didn't know where they led, but I felt drawn to follow. There was a sense of welcome hidden inside their soft light. The air began to hum with evening sounds. Crickets, the wind, and the gentle drip of rain from tree to leaf. It felt as though the world was slowing down on purpose, inviting me to join its rhythm, to move gently, to breathe softer. The path curved slightly toward a line of tall trees. Their dark shapes swayed, touching the sky. Between their trunks, the lanterns looked closer now, like a trail guiding a dreamer through the edge of sleep. I adjusted my scarf, pulled it close to my neck. The night carried a chill, but it was kind, not cold. It felt like an old friend's hand resting lightly on my shoulder. Everything around me seemed to hum with quiet reassurance. Somewhere, water moved. Maybe a small stream or puddle. The sound was soft, trickling, steady, like a song without words. I slowed my steps just to listen, letting the rhythm of it match my breathing. The scent of rain grew stronger, mixing with wildflowers. It filled the air with that sweet, calm smell that only comes after storms. Every breath felt cleaner, deeper, as if the air itself wanted to soothe my thoughts. The world ahead shimmered faintly in the moonlight. Mist rose from the fields, curling around the lanterns. It looked like a dream I was walking into, one I didn't want to end. Every step took me deeper into quiet wonder. Somewhere inside, I knew this path was not ordinary. It had that gentle pull of something sacred, something meant for peace, not purpose. I followed without hurry, my heart open to the silence. The last light of day disappeared behind the hills. The sky turned soft and dark, like velvet draped over the earth. Lanterns glowed brighter now, leading me forward. Each flicker felt alive, as if it knew I was coming. And so I walked, slowly, quietly, with only the sound of my steps and the breath of the wind. Ahead, the night opened wide, full of promise. I didn't know where I was going, only that I was meant to arrive. The path curved gently between the trees, and the lanterns shone brighter as I drew near. Each one swayed slightly in the wind, their warm light spilling softly across the damp ground. They hung from low wooden posts, painted with faded patterns of leaves and moons. Some were cracked, some new, but all burned with the same quiet golden patience. The air smelled faintly of oil and cedar wood. Each lantern gave off a small hum, not a sound you could hear, but something you could feel. It pulsed gently, like a heartbeat made of light. I slowed down, watching the glow dance across my hands. It reminded me of fireflies in the summer, when the air was warm and the nights were long. The memory made me smile without knowing why. The mist thickened slightly, softening the edges of everything. Trees turned to shapes, shadows to whispers. The road ahead disappeared into a pale silver haze, as if it were being painted fresh with every step. My shoes brushed against wet leaves, their scent rising sweet and green. A drop of rain slid from a branch onto my wrist, cool, delicate, and perfectly placed. Every lantern seemed to light up as I approached, then fade behind me when I passed. It felt alive, a quiet companion guiding me forward. The garden, though unseen, was calling gently through the fog. The night deepened into a soft blue. Somewhere above the clouds, the moon began to rise, not bright, but dim enough to keep the world sleepy and kind. I reached out once, letting my fingers brush a lantern. The glass was warm to the touch, like it remembered sunlight from another day. Its glow wrapped around me, soft and forgiving. Somewhere, an owl called, low and distant. The echo moved slowly through the trees, filling the spaces between my footsteps. Every sound belonged exactly where it was. I passed a small wooden sign at the bend in the path. The words were worn, but still clear. Follow the light. The garden waits beyond. The letters glimmered faintly, written with patience and care. I took a deep breath, letting it fill my chest. The night air felt calm and cool against my skin. Every breath, every step became part of the rhythm, a quiet song between the world and me. The mist shifted, and I could almost see ahead, a faint outline of a tall gate covered in climbing vines. The lanterns grew closer together now, as if preparing me for what came next. Their light flickered like breathing. In, out, in, out, soft and slow. Each glow felt like a heartbeat from another world, steady, peaceful, endlessly patient. I walked a little further until the lanterns formed a gentle archway above my head. The road beneath glistened with moonlight, like liquid silver leading to a dream. Somewhere deep inside, I knew this was not just a path through the woods. It was a passage into something quieter, something meant to be found only by those who listened. The wind sighed through the branches. The mist lifted slightly, showing the gate ahead more clearly. Its iron bars were covered in ivy, and behind it shimmered the faintest light, alive, waiting. The last lantern hung just before the gate. Its flame burned steady and golden, casting a warm circle on the ground. I paused there, listening to the stillness. The world had grown so quiet, I could hear my own heartbeat blending with the wind. The moment felt endless, like time itself had chosen to rest. And as I stood before the gate, I felt no fear, only calm curiosity. The light flickered once, softly, as if the garden beyond had noticed me at last. The gate stood tall, framed by ivy and moonlight. Its iron bars curved like old tree roots, woven together with small silver threads of dew. It looked ancient, but alive, breathing in the still night air. When I stepped closer, the vines moved slightly. They didn't curl or twist, just shivered, as if they felt the warmth of my presence. Drops of water slid from leaf to leaf. Slow as honey, I placed my hand on the gate. It was cool and rough beneath my fingers, but something gentle stirred beneath the surface. A quiet vibration, steady and familiar. For a moment, I thought I heard voices. Not clear words, only soft murmurs. They drifted through the metal like ripples, filling the silence with a tender rhythm. The sound reminded me of wind through tall grass, or waves touching the edge of a calm shore. It wasn't asking or warning, just speaking in its own sleepy language. I leaned closer, listening. Between the murmurs, I caught a few faint phrases. "Welcome back," one seemed to say. Another whispered, "Follow the light." My chest felt warm, though the night was cool. Something old in me remembered this place, not from dreams or stories, but from a feeling deeper than thought. The gate began to glow faintly beneath my hand. Soft veins of light spread across the vines, like moonlight moving through green glass. It shimmered, then slowly loosened its hold. The hinges creaked, long and tired, but the sound wasn't harsh. It was soft, like a sigh from something waking after years. The gate began to open by itself. Beyond it, mist rolled across the ground like breath. The air changed, lighter, scented with earth and rain. A faint trail of lanterns led onward, their light smaller now, gentler, almost shy. I stepped through, feeling the shift instantly. The air behind the gate felt distant, while the air inside felt thick and full, as if the world had deepened somehow. The sound of my footsteps faded quickly. Here, every noise seemed to melt before it could echo. It was quiet, but not empty. It was a quiet that was alive, listening. I looked back once. The gate was still open, but dim. Its glow had softened, almost invisible in the fog. Then slowly, it began to close again. The sound of the latch falling into place was gentle, like a whisper being tucked back to sleep. The vines settled, wrapping around it once more, guarding whatever world I had left behind. I turned forward and took a breath. The mist felt cool against my face. Something unseen moved through it. A breeze carrying the scent of jasmine and rain. The garden was waiting just beyond the next rise. I could feel it in the air, like music I hadn't yet heard, but somehow knew. The lanterns flickered softly, showing me the way. I walked slowly, each step softer than the last. The earth beneath my feet felt warm now, as if the garden itself welcomed every movement, every breath, every heartbeat. Somewhere far above, the stars were fading. Dawn was not yet near, but the night was gentling. It was the hour when even dreams fall quiet, when everything is at peace. And as I followed the dim lights deeper inside, I felt the last trace of the outside world fade. There was no hurry, no need to think. Only the hush of the garden waiting to be found. The mist thinned, revealing a glow ahead. It wasn't sunlight or lantern light, but something softer, warmer, alive. It shimmered over the path like quiet water. As I stepped closer, the air turned sweet. The scent of jasmine deepened, and I could hear faint chimes, as if the wind was brushing tiny bells hidden in the leaves. The garden opened before me, endless and gentle. Trees arched like they were bowing to the stars. Their branches carried thousands of tiny glowing buds, each one breathing light in slow rhythm. A silver pond lay in the center, its surface smooth as glass, reflecting both the sky and something beyond it. A deeper light hidden beneath the water. Around the pond grew flowers of impossible colors, soft blues that turned to violet when touched by wind, pale gold that pulsed like heartbeat, and white petals that glowed from within. A soft path circled the pond. It wasn't made of stone, but of fallen petals, still fresh, still warm from where they had grown. Each step released a faint, comforting sound. Somewhere in the distance, I heard slow humming. It wasn't human. It was too deep, too old. It felt like the garden itself was singing, a tune made of light and memory. I sat by the pond and watched the reflections move. The water rippled with my breath, and in its tiny waves, I saw shapes, dreams forming like clouds in slow motion. A silver fish swam near the surface. Its scales shimmered with colors that had no name. When it passed, the ripples grew brighter, and the reflection of the moon seemed to smile. The longer I stayed, the quieter my thoughts became. Every worry melted like snow on warm stone. The garden didn't ask questions or give answers. It simply existed, patient and kind. A faint breeze drifted through the branches. The glowing petals swayed and fell in spirals, landing softly on the pond, floating like tiny lanterns across the surface. The humming grew softer, fading into a rhythm that matched my heartbeat. Even the air felt slower, as if time itself was ready to rest. I leaned back against the roots of a tree. They curved like arms, cradling me gently. Above, the stars blinked in the still air, as if watching over this moment of peace. A single firefly drifted near my face. It circled once, glowing faintly, then joined the others above the pond, their lights dancing like tiny dreams. The night seemed endless now, not dark or heavy, but wide and kind, a place where everything could finally stop moving and simply be. I closed my eyes, hearing the soft lap of water. Somewhere, a bell chimed 3 slow notes. They echoed across the garden, fading like breath. Everything was quiet once more. The Dreamkeeper's garden was awake, and I too was part of it now. Not a visitor, not a stranger, but a quiet dream among many. And in that stillness, the night folded around me like silk. The garden breathed, and the world fell gently, peacefully asleep. When I awoke, the air was still wrapped in blue light. The pond shimmered faintly, as if the stars had sunk into it overnight. Every leaf held a tiny drop of silver dew, and the whole garden seemed to breathe in slow rhythm. I rose from beneath the dreaming tree. The ground was cool, covered with soft moss that glowed under my feet. In the distance, I could see a faint archway, woven from vines, bending toward a quiet mist. A path led toward it, gentle and winding. The petals beneath me whispered with every step. The scent of lavender and rain mixed in the air, a perfume that made my thoughts drift farther away. The archway opened onto a bridge. It wasn't built of stone or wood, but from threads of light, golden and silver, shimmering as if woven by the hands of dreams. Below the bridge was no river, only reflection. A vast surface of glassy calm stretched endlessly below. I saw not my face, but my memories, moments of childhood, laughter, and quiet wonder. Each ripple brought another picture. A rainy morning long ago, a warm cup of tea, the face of a friend smiling through candlelight. It all felt close enough to touch. I stepped forward, careful and slow. The bridge hummed under my feet, each step releasing a note like a harp string, echoing softly into the still air. Halfway across, the mist rose higher. Shapes began to appear, faint figures of light, people walking side by side, their eyes peaceful, their pace unhurried. They didn't look at me, but I felt seen. It was as if they knew I was passing through, a traveler from the waking world, crossing into a gentler place. One figure paused and turned slightly. I couldn't see a face, only the glow around them. They raised a hand, not to wave, but to guide me forward toward the other side. The air shimmered with tiny particles of gold. They floated like dust in sunlight, but each one seemed to carry a whisper, the soft murmur of memories half remembered. As I listened, I heard my own voice, younger, lighter, full of curiosity. It was like hearing a version of myself I had forgotten, but always missed. The sound filled my chest with warmth. It wasn't sadness. It was something gentler, like the quiet joy of finding an old letter you thought was lost forever. When I reached the end of the bridge, the mist opened into another part of the garden. Here, the trees stood taller, their trunks carved with stories, and the air carried a faint hum, alive with memory. Behind me, The bridge glowed faintly, then faded, dissolving back into mist. Only the soft sound of water remained, whispering, "Remember," and "Rest." The new part of the garden was quieter still. The air felt heavier, as if holding its breath. Tall willows surrounded a circular clearing, their leaves trailing down like curtains of green silk. In the center stood an arched doorway. It wasn't built from stone or wood, but from layers of glass, each tinted a different hue: amber, blue, rose, and faint violet. A single lantern hung above the arch, its flame small but steady, casting ripples of golden light across the path, inviting me to enter without fear. As I stepped through, sound changed. Outside, the garden had whispered softly. Here, there was no whisper, only silence, thick and sacred, like a held breath. The hall stretched far beyond sight. Its walls shimmered faintly, covered with countless tiny orbs of light, each one pulsing like the rhythm of a sleeping heart. When I looked closer, I saw shapes inside them. Each orb held something faint: a paper boat, a ring, a candle, a folded letter. Tiny relics from dreams that had once been wished. They weren't sad, these forgotten wishes. They simply rested here, sleeping quietly, waiting for someone to remember them and smile once before walking on. A gentle breeze drifted through the hall. It carried 1,000 whispers, each one fragile, soft as a sigh, murmuring, "I wanted, I hoped, I dreamed." In the center of the room stood a pedestal. On it rested a silver bowl filled with glowing sand. The grains shimmered in different colors, each one representing a single untold dream. When I leaned closer, I heard faint sounds: a child's laughter, a violin's soft note, the creak of a chair beside a warm fire. The sound of memories not lost, but asleep. The lantern light above flickered slightly. Its glow touched my hands, and for a brief moment, I felt warmth spread through me. The comfort of being remembered. I closed my eyes and whispered softly, "For everything forgotten, may peace remain." The air seemed to sigh in reply, a long exhale that filled the hall with calm. Then one of the glowing orbs drifted free. It floated toward me, turning in slow circles, and rested just above my shoulder, humming a sound like a lullaby. When it touched my hand, it vanished, not gone, but absorbed, like a memory returning home. The room brightened for a moment, then faded back to soft gold and shadow. I turned toward the arch again, feeling lighter, as if something inside had settled. Behind me, the hall remained still, its quiet song echoing in the air. Outside, the wind moved through the willows, carrying the faintest scent of rain. The lantern by the doorway flickered once, then glowed steady again. Patient, eternal, the path continued deeper into the garden, lined now with petals the color of dusk. The night sky shimmered above, and the Dreamkeeper's realm waited beyond. The path curved away from the hall, descending into a low valley where mist gathered like silk. The air grew cooler, carrying the faint scent of water lilies and the sound of slow, rhythmic droplets falling. I followed the sound until the trees parted. There, under a sky the color of faded silver, lay a circular pond, vast, still, and dark as glass. Tiny rings rippled across its surface, then disappeared. In the center stood a small island of stone. On it sat an old figure, cloaked in pale blue, their hands folded on their knees, their face calm as moonlight on snow. I didn't speak, yet they seemed to hear my thoughts. They opened their eyes that held entire nights, filled with reflections of everything that ever was, and everything still waiting to be dreamed. "Welcome," they said, though their lips didn't move. "The pond remembers all that passes." Their voice was gentle and deep, like water echoing inside a seashell. I knelt at the edge, peering into the water. Instead of my reflection, I saw moments drifting, seasons changing, faces aging, and the endless sweep of time breathing in slow motion. The keeper reached out and touched the pond's surface. Ripples spread outward in perfect rings, and within them I saw the smallest of scenes: a candle being lit, a door opening, a tear drying. "These are not your memories alone," they whispered. "Time belongs to all who dream." Each word lingered in the air like mist, settling softly on my skin. The pond's color began to shift, turning from silver to blue, then violet, then soft gold. The sound of dripping water slowed, each drop landing like the tick of a sleepy clock. All sense of hours or days dissolved. There was only this gentle rhythm, the heartbeat of the world, echoing through water and wind. I closed my eyes and listened deeply. It felt as though the earth itself was breathing, each exhale carrying memories into stillness, each inhale drawing new dreams to life. The keeper smiled faintly. "Nothing is ever lost," they murmured, "only transformed by time's quiet hands." Their voice faded like ripples fading in dusk. I opened my eyes once more. The pond reflected the sky now, endless, calm, whole. For a moment, I couldn't tell where the water ended and the heavens began. When I rose, the keeper nodded slowly. The mist swirled around their island, hiding them again. Only their final words remained, floating gently through the fog. Go on. The dream continues. I step back onto the path. The air shimmered faintly, heavy with peace. Behind me, the pond stilled completely, holding time itself in perfect rest. The path climbed gently upward, away from the pond. The mist thinned, and I could hear faint rustling ahead. Not wind exactly, but 1,000 quiet voices, each one soft as a sigh beneath the leaves. Soon, I entered a grove unlike any other. Tall trees circled in perfect harmony, their trunks pale silver, their bark smooth as stone, and their branches reaching like arms toward the stars. The air here was alive with sound, gentle whispers moving from tree to tree, a chorus of calm voices telling stories in words that weren't meant to be understood, only felt. I stood still and listened. The forest seemed to breathe, slow and deep. Every leaf trembled with quiet energy, like pages turning in an endless book of dreams. Somewhere above, unseen birds stirred in their nests. Their wings brushed against the branches, sending tiny showers of silver dust downward, sparkling as they drifted through the cool air. Each particle glowed for a moment, then faded like breath on glass. It was as if the forest was sharing its thoughts. Ancient, kind, and endlessly patient. A single tree near the center stood taller than the rest. Its roots spread wide, weaving into the earth like veins. At its base lay a pool of clear light, rippling softly whenever a whisper passed. I approached and placed my hand on its trunk. The wood was warm, pulsing gently beneath my palm. And then I heard it, a voice deep within the tree, soft as dreamlight. It didn't speak in sentences. It spoke in feelings, memories of rain, the scent of old soil, the slow rhythm of centuries gone by. The more I listened, the quieter my mind became. Every thought melted into stillness. Every worry faded to nothing until I felt only peace, simple and whole. A breeze moved through the grove, carrying a melody made of rustling leaves. It wasn't a song, yet it had rhythm, a lullaby older than words themselves. The light around me dimmed, turning gold, then blue, then the color of dusk. The forest exhaled as one, and the whispers softened to a steady hush. I leaned against the great tree and closed my eyes. The ground beneath me was soft, and the air smelled faintly of rain and sleep. Every sound blended into a single, gentle hum. For a long while, nothing moved. Even time seemed to rest among the roots. The stars above shimmered faintly, reflected in the quiet pool beside the tree. As my breathing slowed, I felt it, the sense of belonging, deep and real, as if the forest itself was holding me in the rhythm of its endless peaceful dream. And when the last whisper faded, the night felt whole once more. The trees stood silent, watchful, content, guardians of every dream that ever was. The first hint of dawn crept through the trees, not bright, but soft, a pale silver light touching the tops of leaves and waking the petals, as if the garden itself were stirring from slumber. The whispers of the night faded one by one. A new sound rose in their place, the gentle hum of morning air. Warm and filled with promise, I opened my eyes slowly, still resting beneath the ancient tree. The forest was no longer shadowed, but washed in the colors of quiet sunrise. The sky above shimmered with lavender and gold. Mist hovered over the roots, curling like smoke from a sleeping candle, as the earth exhaled after a long, peaceful dream. Tiny lights drifted upward from the soil, not fireflies, not stars, but dream seeds, lifting into the air and vanishing softly, carrying last night's wishes into a new dawn. The trees stood motionless, bathed in glow. Every branch seemed to hum faintly, and for the first time I heard birdsong, slow, clear, and impossibly gentle. The melody felt familiar, as if I had heard it in another lifetime. It carried both joy and calm, a sound meant to remind the heart to rest. I rose and looked around. The paths of the garden stretched ahead, woven with golden light that traced every turn, inviting me to walk once more. Dewdrops clung to the petals along the trail. Each one caught the morning glow, turning into tiny mirrors of the sky. So delicate, I feared even breath might break them. A fountain appeared ahead, carved from moonstone. Its water fell in slow, shimmering arcs, splashing softly into a pool so clear it seemed to hold the colors of the dawn itself. Beside it stood a stone bench covered in moss. I sat there quietly, hands folded, listening to the trickle of water, letting its rhythm slow my heartbeat. The sound seemed alive, Not a single note wasted, not a drop hurried. Each splash landed exactly where it belonged, as if time itself was learning to relax. In the distance, I saw the faint outline of the Dreamkeeper's tower, tall and graceful. Its windows glowed like sleeping eyes, reflecting both night and morning light. A breeze passed through the garden. It brushed my face with cool air and memory, as though the Dreamkeeper knew I was awake and was smiling somewhere beyond the mist. I took a deep breath and let the air fill me, soft, sweet, and endlessly calm. Every inhale carried peace deeper inside. Every exhale let the night drift further away. The garden no longer felt mysterious. It felt familiar, like returning home to a place that had always been waiting, quietly patient, kind, and eternal. The first true rays of sunlight appeared. They didn't break the dream. They joined it, weaving day and night together in one seamless, timeless breath. And in that moment, I understood the Dreamkeeper's gift. Not a treasure or a secret, but the simple art of peaceful waking. The morning deepened softly, never rushing. The air shimmered like golden silk, and the path before me glowed faintly, woven from beams of light that swayed with each step. Every few paces, I saw the traces of last night's dreams, tiny sparks floating above the ground, shimmering for a moment before fading, like thoughts too gentle to stay awake. The world was quiet except for my footsteps. Even the birds sang slowly here, their voices stretching like soft ribbons through the silver blue air. The path curved between tall hedges covered in small bell-shaped flowers. Each time I brushed against them, they released a faint note, clear and kind. It felt as though the entire garden was alive, not in movement, but in awareness. Every leaf, every sound was part of a larger breath of peace. Ahead, sunlight spilled through an archway. The light wasn't harsh or blinding. It glowed like honey in warm tea, melting everything into golden calm. I stepped through, and the ground changed beneath me. What had been earth became smooth crystal, cool underfoot, and faintly luminous, as if holding the light of distant stars. The tower stood in the far distance, its shape clear now. Tall, elegant, endless. It seemed to hum with the same energy as the pond, a pulse that matched the rhythm of my heart. I walked slower, letting my senses drift. The air grew warm, scented with orange blossom and dew. Somewhere behind me, a bell chimed 3 soft notes, its echo melting into the light. Each step felt lighter than the last. My thoughts no longer clung to time or purpose. I was simply walking, breathing, existing in this calm between dream and day. Along the way, I passed small fountains. Their water rose and fell in perfect rhythm, each droplet catching sunlight, turning into brief sparks of gold before vanishing. A gentle wind followed me down the path. It tugged lightly at my sleeves, as if urging me forward, yet never breaking the silence that wrapped the air. The tower grew closer, but not faster. It seemed to move with me, always keeping the same soft distance, waiting until I was truly ready to arrive. On either side of the path, tiny white feathers floated through the air. They weren't falling or flying. They simply hung there, suspended in stillness. When one brushed against my hand, it dissolved into a small burst of light. The glow lingered on my skin for a moment, then sank gently into my heartbeat. The path turned one last time, leading into a clearing of gold and silver grass. The tower loomed above it now, quiet, ancient, and full of light. And as I stood at its base, I felt the air shift, calm, welcoming, whole. The Dreamkeeper's voice, though distant, seemed to whisper, "Come closer." The tower rose high above me, its walls made of pale stone that glowed softly in the morning light. Each block seemed to breathe, as if remembering every dream that had ever touched it. I stepped toward the great doors. They were carved with flowing patterns, stars, rivers, and circles of light, symbols that moved gently as I looked at them. When I reached out, the door opened soundlessly. Warm air drifted out, carrying the scent of cedar and jasmine. Inside was no darkness, only a steady golden glow that wrapped around me like a blanket. The hall was vast and still. Tall windows filtered sunlight through strands of mist. Tiny dust motes floated in slow spirals, turning the air into a field of soft, glowing stars. Each step echoed lightly, but the sound faded quickly, swallowed by peace. It felt less like walking and more like gliding, as if the floor itself wanted me to move gently. At the far end of the hall, a small round table waited, covered in delicate glass jars filled with pale light. Each jar shimmered with faint colors like bottled dreams. I approached one and held it carefully. Inside, a soft scene moved. A child releasing a kite into the wind, laughter sparkling in the air before fading. The next jar held a forest at dawn, mist drifting between tall trees, a small stream whispering through moss. and birds singing somewhere far away. Every jar was a story, and every story pulsed like a heartbeat. The Dreamkeeper had collected them all. Moments too beautiful to be forgotten. I heard gentle footsteps behind me. When I turned, she was already there. The Dreamkeeper wore robes of soft silver blue, and her eyes shimmered like calm water. She didn't speak at first. Instead, she smiled in quiet understanding, as if she'd been waiting not for me to arrive, but for me to remember I was already here. Her voice, when it came, was soft and low. "You've walked far to find this place," she said, "but the path has always been within you. The garden only shows what already sleeps in your heart." I felt her words like a slow wind through my chest. They didn't ask for thought or answer. They simply settled, like gentle rain falling on still water. She motioned toward the shelves of light. "These are dreams," she said, "gathered from the quiet minds of those who seek peace. Each one rests here until it is ready to return." I watched the lights flicker and sway. It felt as though time itself had softened, stretching like silk, allowing every breath to last a little longer. Then she lifted one jar from the table. Its light was brighter than the rest, soft, golden, and pulsing like a slow heartbeat. "This one is yours," she whispered. I held the jar in both hands. Inside, the glow trembled and then steadied, as if recognizing me. I could feel its warmth through the glass. The Dreamkeeper smiled again. "Dreams never leave," she said softly. "They wait, quietly, patiently, for you to find your way back to them." The room faded into golden haze. The light grew warmer, wrapping around me until the hall, the tower, and even my body felt weightless, calm, and free. The light from the jar pulsed softly in my hands, a rhythm that matched my heartbeat, slow and steady, as if the Dreamkeeper's garden had breathed itself into me. The room shimmered gently around us. Golden motes drifted like petals on invisible water. The air was warm and alive, carrying a faint hum that sounded like distant lullabies. I looked down at the small jar again. The glow was stronger now, spreading thin threads of light across my fingers, weaving warmth into my skin. The Dreamkeeper stepped closer. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "Close your eyes," she said, "and let it open where it belongs." So I did. Behind my eyelids, the golden light expanded, turning the darkness into soft waves of color. Blue, lavender, and pale silver. I felt myself floating, as if the floor beneath me had become air, as if gravity itself had grown gentle. Everything was slower, softer, lighter. Then I heard her voice again, fading but near, like someone speaking through a dream. "Rest is not the end," she said. "It is the returning." The warmth deepened. It spread from my hands to my arms, from my chest to my breath, until I could no longer tell where the light ended and I began. I saw shapes forming in the glow. Trees, rivers, stars. The same symbols from the doors, now alive and moving inside the light. Each one shimmered for a moment, then dissolved into calm mist. The mist wrapped around me, soft as silk, cool as evening air. Somewhere in that golden haze, I felt the Dreamkeeper's presence again, gentle and endless, like a mother tucking in a sleeping child. She whispered, "You've remembered. You've come home." Her words rippled through me, not as sound, but as peace. I breathed deeply. Once, twice, and the breath didn't end. It became part of the room, part of the quiet pulse of everything. When I opened my eyes, the tower was fading, its edges dissolving into soft morning light. Only the jar remained, glowing faintly in my hands. The Dreamkeeper smiled, then slowly turned to light herself, a single shining thread, drifting upward and vanishing among the stars. The silence that followed was not empty. It was full of warmth, memory, and stillness. It was the kind of silence that held you gently, that asked nothing but rest. I lay down on the marble floor, the jar beside me, its glow dimming with my breath. The last thing I felt was the whisper of air moving through open windows. Outside, the garden was quiet. The fountains murmured. The night sky waited, calm, wide, eternal. And as I drifted into the space between waking and dreaming, I realized the gift was not the light, but the stillness it left behind. The peace that asks you to simply stay sleepy. A soft breeze brushed across my face, cool and steady, carrying the scent of rain and earth. When I opened my eyes, the tower was gone. I was lying on the garden's mossy path again. The grass beneath me felt alive, springy and damp from a midnight drizzle. And above, the sky was still painted with quiet stars. The golden jar rested beside me, its light dim now, a sleepy pulse fading in and out, as though it too was ready to rest. The Dreamkeeper was nowhere to be seen, but her presence lingered in the air, a warmth that didn't need a face, a calm that stayed behind. The sound of the fountains returned, soft trickles over stone, their rhythm gentle and endless. Like the breathing of the garden itself, I sat up slowly, feeling my body lighter, as if every muscle had released its story. Every thought had been washed clean. All around me, the plants shimmered faintly in moonlight. The leaves moved as if whispering, sharing secrets of sleep with the wind. Everything seemed alive in stillness. Somewhere near, a night bird called, its tone low and dreamy. It didn't disturb the quiet. It completed it, like a sigh before sleep. I reached for the jar, held it close to my chest, and felt the last of its glow sink inward, settling like a small sun behind my ribs. Then, slowly, I began to walk. The path curved through soft grass, past glowing mushrooms and sleeping flowers, each one breathing out tiny clouds of mist. The air was heavy with calm. Even my footsteps seemed to vanish as I moved, absorbed by the still ground, as though the garden wanted me to float instead of walk. Every few steps, I paused, listening, not for sound, but for silence. There it was again, that deep, endless hum, like the heart of the night. It was peaceful in a way that felt eternal, the kind of peace you don't find. It finds you when you stop searching. And I had stopped. Completely, the moonlight shifted across the path, casting silver pools on the moss. I followed them like stepping stones until I reached the arch of vines where it all began. The garden was waiting, silent, glowing, and patient. It didn't need words to tell me. This was the way back home. I breathed in deeply, and the scent of lavender and rain filled my lungs. It was enough, more than enough. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't want to go anywhere. The world was quiet, and I was part of it. Completely still, completely safe. The arch of vines shimmered faintly as I stepped through. The leaves brushed my shoulders like kind hands, and the air beyond was warmer, filled with the scent of blooming jasmine. Each step along the path felt slower now, as if time itself had softened its grip. Even the stars above seemed unhurried, hanging in place like glowing pearls. The ground glowed faintly under my feet, a pale silver trail winding through soft grass. It felt familiar, as though I had walked this way long ago in another dream. I passed a row of lanterns resting on stone pillars. Their flames barely flickered, steady, golden, and quiet, like thoughts that had finally found peace. As I moved closer, I noticed each lantern held something inside. One held a pressed flower, another a folded note, another a single feather that shimmered blue. The air was thick with gentle memory. I could almost hear voices from far away, soft laughter, quiet words, echoes of things once loved and never lost. Somewhere deep inside, the warmth from the Dreamkeeper's jar stirred again. It pulsed with each memory I passed, as if it remembered them too. I stopped beside one lantern, the one holding a small seashell. When I looked at it closely, I could hear faint waves inside, calm and endless. It reminded me of still mornings by the ocean, when the sun was slow to rise and the world was quiet enough to hear your own breath and believe in it. I smiled without meaning to. The memory wasn't sharp. It was soft, like fog, but it made my heart glow just a little brighter. The path curved gently through the garden. I followed it past sleeping roses and silver grass, each petal heavy with dew, each blade shimmering in moonlight. At the edge of the path, a pool of water waited, still as glass. It reflected the stars perfectly, as if the sky had bowed down to rest. I knelt beside it, and for a moment I saw my reflection. But it wasn't just me. It was every calm version of myself I'd ever been. The child who once dreamed under trees, the wanderer who chased sunsets, the quiet soul who learned to stop running. All of them looked back at me, smiling. Then the reflection faded, replaced by soft ripples that whispered against the edge. The sound was like breathing, slow, rhythmic, alive. And I realized it was the garden's heart. The Dreamkeeper had said, "Rest is returning." Now I understood. This garden was the place where all pieces return, to be still, to be whole, to be home. I sat beside the pool for a long time. The air was cool, the stars were steady, and the water hummed a lullaby that had no words, only peace. Eventually, I lay back on the grass. The moss cradled my head, and the sound of the pool carried me inward, past thought, past time, into pure quiet. The night deepened around me, but it didn't feel dark. It felt like a blanket drawn over the world, soft and protective, whispering that it was time to rest. The fountains had quieted to a faint murmur, just a trickle of sound, like someone humming in their sleep. The air itself seemed to breathe. I could see tiny fireflies drifting between the trees. their light slow and golden, rising and falling in rhythm with the garden's quiet pulse. It felt like the stars had come down to join us. The pool beside me shimmered faintly. The ripples were gone, and the reflection had turned to perfect stillness, like a doorway between two worlds. Somewhere in the distance, a bell chimed once, low, gentle, and fading before the echo could form. It sounded like the end of something beautiful, but also the beginning of deep peace. The golden jar, resting near my hand, gave one final flicker of light. It wasn't bright. It was the glow of something satisfied, complete. I picked it up slowly, feeling the last warmth it carried. It no longer pulsed. It rested, as if it had given everything it needed to. Around me, the flowers began to close their petals. The vines grew still. Even the wind seemed to stop moving, content just to listen to the silence. A thin mist rolled over the garden floor, curling around stones and benches, wrapping everything in a soft silver haze. It was the color of dreams right before they fade. I lay down again, the moss cool beneath my back, and looked up at the canopy of stars. They weren't distant anymore. They were near, close enough to feel their quiet glow. The night sky moved slowly above me, each star tracing invisible lines of calm. It felt like the universe itself was exhaling all the noise it had ever held. The longer I watched, the more everything blurred together. The stars, the mist, the sound of my breath, until the world had no edges. It was all one calm ocean of night. The Dreamkeeper's words floated through my mind again, not as a memory, but as a lullaby made of silence. Sleep is not an escape, she had said. It is a gentle returning. And now I knew what she meant. The garden wasn't outside me anymore. It was within. The last of the jar's light slipped from my hand, a faint gold thread that drifted upward, spiraling once through the air, then dissolving into starlight. The garden exhaled. The air shimmered softly, and then stilled. Everything was calm. Everything was complete. The night was completely still now. The air no longer moved, and the stars hung quietly above the garden, as if time had chosen to pause for rest. I could hear my own breathing, soft, steady, and deep. Each breath felt like a wave rising and falling inside a calm sea. The moss beneath me had grown warmer, shaped perfectly to my body. It felt alive, as though the earth itself was holding me gently. Somewhere far away, a faint breeze began again. It brushed across my skin like a sigh, cool and kind, carrying the scent of jasmine and rain. The sound of water returned too. Small ripples from the pool nearby, just enough to remind me that the world was still softly turning. The stars above me started to dim, not all at once, but slowly, the way candles fade when the night is done. Their light blended with the mist, painting everything in shades of silver and blue. It felt like being wrapped inside a dream that had no edges, no beginning, and no end. I closed my eyes. The darkness was gentle, not empty, but full. It held quiet voices of wind and water, tiny songs that said, "Rest now, rest." Somewhere in that darkness, I felt the Dreamkeeper again. Her voice was a whisper, carried not by sound, but by stillness. "You've come full circle," she said. "Everything that was lost has found its place. The light you carried, it was always yours." Her words sank deeper than thought. They became part of my heartbeat, part of the rhythm between each breath, until I couldn't tell where she ended and I began. The garden grew softer around me, its colors melting into night. The fountains turned to echoes, the trees to gentle outlines in the dark. Then, slowly, everything became one thing: light and shadow, air and silence, folding into a single moment of peace. It was as if the whole world was exhaling,